Welcome to Naximanim. I'm Jacob Thomas, and today we will be learning Shmuel Bet, perek Zion. So we begin this perek where David sees that he has this big giant palace from the cedar wood that the king Hiram, the king of Tzor, gave to him. But the Aron HaKodesh, it's in a little tent, and he feels a sense of unworthiness. Why should I live in a house of cedar? But the ark, the Aron of God, the Aron HaKodesh, isn't a tent of curtains? And now David shares this idea to Natan Hanavi that he wants to build a permanent house for Hashem. And originally Natan Hanavi says, "Great, go ahead. Whatever you say is good." But that night, Natan Hanavi gets a prophecy that David will not be the one that builds the temple. And he explains that he never asked for a house. He's been in Israel with a tent since they left Egypt, all these hundreds of years. And now David's life has been defined by war and protection of a nation. But we want a time of peace, time of shalom, time of shlomo for the building of the Aron. Now, because of this, instead of letting David build the house, Hashem promises to David that he will have a house, an eternal dynasty, that every king of Israel will come from David, and he will have a throne in this kingdom forever. But David's son, Shlomo, will be the one to build the future Beis HaMikdash. And Hashem promises that David will be the father of the line. And he will discipline them, but he will never completely withdraw his presence as he did with King Shaul. David is overwhelmed by God's kindness. Now, while he is sad that he could not build the Beis HaMikdash, still he enters the Mishkan, the tent that he was so sad existed. And he sits before God and prays, "Who am I that God is my God? And what is my house that you have brought me thus far? That you have given me so much. Thank you so much." And David thanks God for the eternal blessing and prays that Hashem's name should be magnified throughout. And he accepts the no with profound joy for the future of Israel. As a recap, we have David's desire to build God a permanent resting point after he lives in a palace of cedar. And we have Natan's original answer that he should, with a later rejection that it was not his time, for he was a man of war. And we have the covenant that God promises David that his son will build the temple and the dynasty will last forever. And we have the response where David prays a beautiful prayer of humility, thanking Hashem for the eternal crown. We are in perek Zion, so just like Zichru, we use a gun, because Zion is a kli Zion in Hebrew, which is a gun. David's gun can't build the Beis HaMikdash, but it earns him an eternal crown. This reminds us how we have David's gun. He didn't have a gun, but it reminds us we're in perek Zion. Zion, kli Zion, gun. And it can't build him the Beis HaMikdash, which reminds us how David wanted to build a Beis HaMikdash. He asked Natan Hanavi, who told him yes, but then got a prophecy from God that said, actually, no. But he will get the eternal prophecy, he will get the eternal kingship from God instead, leading to David's very big prayer at the end of this perek. So one more time with the simon. David's gun can't build the Beis HaMikdash, but it earns him an eternal crown. We're going to do a 4 perek back chazar, starting with perek gimel. The strong kingly camel is able to overpower the weaker camel. This reminds us how over the course of David's kingship, he becomes stronger than the house of Ishbosheth. So the house or the kingdom of Ishbosheth, which has Avner defect to David's side after Ishbosheth accused him of doing bad things with his father's Pilagshim. But then we have Yoav killing Avner, thinking that this was all a ruse. Now we're on perek Dalet, in which we use a door. Ishboshet is impaled by a sharp door. We have the sharp door, which reminds us we're in perek Dalet, Dalet, Delet, door. And in this perek, Ishboshet is taking a nap, and he gets impaled. There's two people that come and kill him. They take his head, give it to David, and David rejects it, kills them, even though they thought that they would get rewarded for this, because he doesn't want to create his kingdom on the death of other people. We are in perek Hay, in which we use a stack of hay. So the stack of hay becomes king over all of Israel. We have the stack of hay, which reminds us we're in perek Hay, and he becomes king over all of Israel, which reminds us how after the death of Ishbosheth, all of Bnei Israel comes to anoint David HaMelech, who then conquers Yerushalayim from the Yevusim, builds his palace with the cedar he gets from Tzor, and battles with the Plishtim and wins. Now perek Vav, in which we use a sword. The man that touched the ark at the joyous festival got sliced by a sword. We have the sword, which reminds us that we're in perek Vav, and we have the joyous festival that reminds us that David wanted to bring the Aron to Yerushalayim, but he brings it on a wagon, and Uziel touches it, or Uzzah touches it, and gets killed by God. The ark cuts through the joy like a sword, and then David later leaves it in the house of Eved Adom, and then brings it to Yerushalayim later in a big joyous festival in which his wife is not so happy about the way he's dancing. We're now going to do a 10 question pop quiz. In which perek does Hashem reject Shaul because he didn't destroy the Amalekim cattle? Perek Tet Vav. In which perek does David ask Hashem for permission to build the Beis HaMikdash? Perek Zion. In which perek does Uzzah die after touching the Aron to steady it? Shmuel Bet, perek Vav. In which perek does Hashem promise David an eternal dynasty and a secure throne? Perek Zion. In which perek Shmuel Bet, perek Zion. In which perek does Yoav kill Avner to avenge the death of his brother Esael? Perek Gimel. Shmuel Bet, perek Gimel. In which perek does David spare Shaul's life in the cave and cuts his robe? Perek Chaf Dalet. In which perek is Ishbosheth murdered by his own captains while in bed? Perek Dalet. In which perek does David defeat Goliath with a sling and a stone? Shmuel Aleph, perek Yud Zayin. In which perek do all the tribes come to Hebron to anoint David as king? Perek Hay. Shoftim bonus question. In which perek do we have the man who defeated Midian with only 300 men? That's Shoftim perek Zayin, and it's Gidon. That is it for today. May we be zuchet to finish all of Nach, one perek at a time, and remember it day after day. Have a wonderful day.